Before Rome was even a whisper, the Italian peninsula was a bustling, diverse place. It was not one people, but many, each with their own culture, language and customs. In the north, the mysterious Etruscans thrived. We still puzzle over their origins and their unique, non-Indo-European language. They were master craftsmen, working with bronze and creating elaborate tombs that tell us stories of their vibrant life and beliefs about the afterlife. Their influence on their neighbors was immense, a fact the later Romans would sometimes conveniently forget, yet the evidence of their sophisticated society is undeniable, etched into the very landscape of Tuscany. To the south, the coastline shimmered with Greek settlements. From around the 8th century BC, Greek colonists established powerful city-states, creating what was known as Magna Graecia, or Great Greece. Cities like Syracuse in Sicily and Naples on the mainland became centers of Greek culture, philosophy, and trade. They brought with them their gods, their democratic ideals, and their architectural brilliance, building stunning temples that still stand today as a testament to their presence. This Greek world was a hive of intellectual activity, a place where new ideas were born and exchanged, profoundly shaping the cultural fabric of the entire southern part of the peninsula for centuries to come. In the heart of the peninsula, nestled along the banks of the river Tiber, lived a collection of tribes known as the Latins. They were farmers and shepherds, a simpler people compared to the Etruscans or the Greeks. One of their many settlements was a small village perched on a series of hills, a place called Rome. According to their own foundation myths, it was established by the twin brothers Romulus and Remus in 753 BC. This story, filled with gods, wolves, and fraternal conflict, was a powerful piece of propaganda for the later Romans, creating a sense of divine destiny for their city, which would grow from these humble, almost unremarkable beginnings. These different groups did not live in isolation. They traded with each other, they fought one another, and they borrowed ideas from their neighbors constantly. Etruscan religious rituals found their way into Roman practice. Greek artistic styles were copied and adapted, and Latin became the language that would eventually dominate the entire region. This early period of Italian history was a rich melting pot of cultures. It was a dynamic and often violent world, but it was this very mix of peoples and traditions that laid the complex and fascinating groundwork for the extraordinary story of Rome and ultimately the nation of Italy itself. From its legendary founding, Rome's story is one of astonishing growth. It began as a monarchy ruled by kings who were, according to tradition, a mix of Latin, Sabine, and Etruscan. But the Romans grew tired of kings. In 509 BC, they expelled their last monarch and established a republic. This new form of government was revolutionary for its time, based on the principle of elected officials and a powerful Senate. It was a system designed to prevent any single man from holding absolute power. This political innovation was the engine of Roman expansion, as the city began a relentless campaign of conquest, first subduing its Latin neighbors, then the Etruscans, and eventually the Greek cities in the south. The Roman Republic became a military powerhouse. Its legions, disciplined and organized, were the most effective fighting force the ancient world had ever seen. Led by brilliant generals like Scipio Africanus, who defeated the great Carthaginian commander Hannibal, Rome extended its control across the Mediterranean. This expansion brought immense wealth and power to the city, but it also created deep social and political tensions. The gap between the rich and the poor widened, and civil wars erupted as powerful individuals like Julius Caesar vied for ultimate control. Caesar's ambition ultimately led to the downfall of the Republic, and after his assassination, his adopted son, Octavian, emerged as the first emperor, Augustus. The Roman Empire, born from the ashes of the Republic, ushered in a period of relative peace and stability known as the Pax Romana. For 2 centuries, the empire flourished. Rome was the capital of the known world, a magnificent city of marble temples, colossal amphitheaters like the Colosseum, and incredible engineering marvels such as the aqueducts that supplied its million inhabitants with fresh water. Roman law, language, and culture spread from the cold frontiers of Britain to the hot sands of Mesopotamia. The empire was a vast, interconnected network of cities and provinces, all administered from Rome, creating a sense of shared identity across a huge and diverse population. However, no empire lasts forever. By the 3rd century AD, Rome faced immense challenges. The empire had become too vast to govern effectively, and it was plagued by internal strife, economic crises, and constant threats from barbarian tribes along its borders. Emperor Constantine moved the capital to a new city, Constantinople, and made Christianity the favored religion, fundamentally changing the character of the empire. In 476 AD, the last Roman emperor in the West was deposed. This date is traditionally seen as the fall of the Roman Empire, though in reality it was a long, slow process of decline and transformation that left the Italian peninsula fractured and vulnerable. With the collapse of Roman central authority, Italy shattered into a mosaic of competing territories. The dream of a single, unified peninsula faded into memory. For centuries, the land was a battleground for invading forces from the Lombards and Franks in the north to the Byzantines and Arabs in the south. In the middle, the popes in Rome carved out their own territory, the Papal States, wielding both spiritual and temporal power. This political fragmentation defined Italy throughout the Middle Ages. Cities became the new centers of power, and powerful families like the Visconti in Milan and the Medici in Florence rose to prominence, ruling as lords over their domains. These independent city-states, such as Venice, Florence, and Genoa, became incredibly wealthy through trade and banking. Venice built a maritime empire, its galleys dominating the trade routes to the east. Florence became the financial capital of Europe, its gold florin the standard currency. This immense wealth created a new class of rich merchants and bankers who were eager to display their status. They became patrons of the arts, commissioning magnificent paintings, sculptures, and buildings. This patronage created the perfect conditions for an unprecedented cultural explosion, a rebirth of classical ideas and artistic expression that we now call the Renaissance. The Renaissance was a period of extraordinary genius, and Italy was its heartland. Artists like Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, and Raphael produced masterpieces that redefined Western art, moving towards a new realism and humanism. Thinkers like Machiavelli explored the cold, hard realities of political power. Scientists and astronomers like Galileo Galilei challenged long-held beliefs about the universe, armed with new tools like the telescope. It was a time of immense creativity and intellectual curiosity, where the focus shifted from the divine to the human. The achievements of this era cemented Italy's reputation as the cultural leader of Europe, and its influence spread across the continent. Despite this cultural brilliance, Italy's political division made it weak and vulnerable. The wealthy but small city-states were no match for the large, unified monarchies of France and Spain, which were growing in power. These foreign giants saw Italy as a rich prize, a land to be conquered and controlled. From the late 15th century onwards, the peninsula became the main theatre for their wars, a long and devastating conflict known as the Italian Wars. Italy's golden age of the Renaissance faded as foreign powers came to dominate the land, a situation that would persist for nearly 300 years, suppressing any hope of Italian unity. For centuries, much of Italy languished under the control of foreign rulers. The Spanish Habsburgs held sway over the south, including Naples and Sicily, while the Austrian Habsburgs dominated large territories in the north, such as Lombardy. The idea of Italy was, honestly, little more than a geographical expression, a memory of a distant Roman past. The peninsula was a patchwork of duchies, kingdoms, and papal territories, often ruled by dynasties loyal to foreign crowns. This long period of foreign domination led to economic stagnation in many regions and, stifled the development of a shared national identity. Italians were subjects of a Spanish king or an Austrian emperor, not citizens of their own country. The winds of change began to blow with the French Revolution and, of course, the subsequent rise of Napoleon Bonaparte. Napoleon's invasions of Italy in the late 18th and early 19th centuries, though driven by his own imperial ambitions, had a profound and unintended effect. He swept away the old aristocratic rulers, redrew the map of the peninsula, and introduced modern legal and administrative systems. For a brief period, he created entities like the Kingdom of Italy, Although it was a puppet state controlled by France, it gave many Italians their first taste of being part of a larger, unified Italian political entity, planting the seeds of nationalism. After Napoleon's defeat in 1815, the old order was restored. The Congress of Vienna handed Italy back to its former Austrian and Bourbon masters, determined to crush the new ideas of nationalism and liberty, but it was too late. The desire for a unified, independent Italy had taken root. This movement became known as the Risorgimento, or resurgence. Secret societies like the Carbonari formed, plotting revolution. Passionate thinkers and writers began to articulate the dream of a united nation. Figures like Giuseppe Mazzini were the ideological heart of the movement, inspiring a generation with his call for a unified and republican Italy, a nation built by its own people. The struggle for unification was a long and difficult one, marked by failed uprisings and brutal repression. The revolutions of 1848, which swept across Europe, saw brave but ultimately unsuccessful attempts to drive out the Austrians from Italian lands. Yet these failures only strengthened the resolve of the patriots. They showed that passion alone was not enough. Unification would require clever diplomacy and military strength. A new leader was needed, someone who could navigate the complex world of European politics to achieve the dream of a free and united Italy. The stage was set for the final, decisive phase of the Risorgimento. The unification of Italy was finally achieved through a combination of shrewd politics and bold military action. The architect of this success was Camillo di Cavour, the clever prime minister of the Kingdom of Piedmont-Sardinia. He allied with France to drive the Austrians out of Lombardy in 1859. At the same time, the passionate revolutionary Giuseppe Garibaldi led his army of 1,000 red-shirted volunteers on a daring expedition to conquer Sicily and Naples. In 1861, the Kingdom of Italy was officially proclaimed, with King Victor Emmanuel II as its monarch. The process was completed over the next decade with the acquisition of Venice and, finally, Rome in 1870. The newly unified Italy faced enormous challenges. There were vast economic and cultural differences between the industrializing north and the poor agricultural south. The famous phrase, "We have made Italy, now we must make Italians," really captured the difficulty of forging a single national identity from such diverse regions. The country also struggled to find its place on the world stage. It participated in the First World War on the side of the Allies, suffering terrible losses. The post-war turmoil and economic crisis created a fertile ground for extremism, leading to the rise of Benito Mussolini and his fascist party, who took power in 1922. Mussolini's fascist regime plunged Italy into 2 decades of dictatorship and an ill-fated alliance with Nazi Germany in the Second World War. The war was a catastrophe for the country, bringing widespread destruction, civil war and foreign occupation. After the conflict, the Italian people were determined to make a fresh start. In a historic referendum held on the 2nd of June 1946, they voted to abolish the monarchy, which had been discredited by its association with the fascist regime. Italy was reborn as a republic, with a new constitution that established a parliamentary democracy, guaranteeing freedom and civil rights for all its citizens. In the decades since, Italy has transformed into a modern, prosperous nation and a founding member of the European Union. It has become a global leader in fashion, design and cuisine, while its rich cultural heritage continues to attract millions of visitors from around the world. The journey from a land of ancient tribes to a unified modern republic has been long and, honestly, often turbulent. It is a story of incredible achievements, from the might of the Roman Empire to the brilliance of the Renaissance and of profound struggles against division and foreign rule. This complex and layered history is what makes Italy the fascinating and vibrant country it is today.